Hello everyone, welcome to another learning video. Today's topic is disability inclusion. Now, disability awareness is generally low in a broader community, and it's important to understand how to include people with disability to participate in an ordinary life. And it's not a single person's job, it requires efforts from everyone in the community. So let's get going on learning how to start making a more accessible world for everyone. In this video, I will discuss disability inclusion, disability etiquettes, invisible disability, and how to be inclusive for people with disability. Talking about the disability and talking to people with disability can be tricky and almost impossible to lay out universal rules, given that the experience of disability is so wide-ranging. First, we have a person-first language, which is intended to emphasize personhood over any impairment. The person is placed before the disability, for example, person with disability or people with disability. The second way to refer is through identity-first emphasis. Now, in this one, we emphasize that the disability is an important part of the person and how they identify themselves. In Australia, person first is the accepted form used by government in policy documentation and communications, or by journalists when telling the stories in the media, or by the organizations in their information sheets, event promotions, etc. Many people and organizations are not even aware of how exclusive they are because they never really thought about it before. Disability inclusion means breaking down the barriers that limit the opportunities for people with disability. It is about creating an inclusive workplace where people feel welcome and comfortable and where they are seen, valued, and appreciated for what they bring to the table. In the workplace, this means taking special care not to set certain individuals at a disadvantage or risk. Ensuring Australia is an inclusive society for people with disability means acknowledging the social model of disability. This model recognizes that societal attitudes, practices, structures, rather than an individual impairment can restrict and prevent people with disability from economic participation, social inclusion, and equality. Now, what is disability etiquette? We often make assumptions which we use as shorthand to make sense of a predictable way that people express themselves. However, many people with disability express themselves differently or respond to different cues. Too often, people with disability are underestimated and not treated with respect due to those deeply held assumptions kicking in. This is one of the main reasons people with disability feel excluded from participating as equal members of society. Now try putting yourself in their shoes and understand what is going on for them and how they might see things. Think about how exhausting it must be to always explain your workarounds and coping mechanisms and justify your decisions. Living with disability is not inspirational, and people with disability are no more superhumans than anyone else. They're just living their lives. Implying that a person with disability is courageous or special just for getting through the day is patronizing and offensive. Be very mindful of the language that you're using. The language that you use can either create a sense of empowerment, pride, identity, and purpose, or it may make the person feel weak or a victim. What is an invisible disability? Invisible disabilities are actually more common than you may think. The most important thing anyone can do to help those living with invisible disabilities is to show some patience and understanding. The worst thing you can do or you can say to someone with invisible disability is, "Oh, you look fine." Try to look at the person and value them as an individual. Do not judge someone by their face value. Remember, difference is not a bad thing. When you're not sure about someone's disability, it's always good to ask the person. Ask questions like, what do you need? How can we make this a better experience for you? And very important is to be flexible with the person and engage authentically with them. Now, how to be inclusive for people with disability? Let's say your friend is planning to organize a personal event or meeting and he has invited you. Now imagine yourself in a wheelchair. Imagine that you are 3 foot tall and have to go everywhere in your chair with wheels. Imagine yourself in a doorway of the building, reaching for food or drinks on a standard sized table in a crowded room with people twice as tall as you are. Imagine yourself wheeling down a rocky footpath. What sort of expectations would you have from your friend in this case? To become inclusive for people with disability, your friend needs to have a yes to all these questions. Is there accessible parking on the premises? Is the space quiet enough to carry a conversation? Is the space uncluttered? Now lastly, I'll share some final tips. As you can see, don't pretend you understood the person with disability if you didn't. Do not assume that a person cannot or doesn't want to be involved simply because they have a disability. Remember, adjustments can almost always be made so that everyone can be included. Be patient, give the person plenty of time to communicate and finish what they have to say. Don't finish their sentences. It's wonderful to celebrate achievements of people with disability just as you would people without disability, but not just because they have a disability. Thank you very much.